Yeah, the FEMA contract is on its way to get all the storm debris and stuff.
Well, you know, Mr. Barber.
FEMA contract.
There you are.
That's just saying that everybody here in money. Let's take it time.
We see
those trees. I had.
Mhm.
If you have a hurricane.
Yeah.
The price to remove them.
Well, you know, Susan.
$1,000.
And it's a like
No,
we
I
have these prickly.
don't know. I
We
didn't.
have these prickly trees on our property. But sometimes you gotta. Good to see you, sir. Good to meet you. Hello, Your Honor.
Wow.
Morning, sir. This is kind of a little different.
You're on the other side of the podium.
Fireballs are out there now.
Yeah.
Good, how are you doing?
Wow. Didn't Sandy be here? I don't know. She, I mean, well, she should be in this.
I don't,
Shouldn't Sandy be in here, you think? Honda?
I'm sorry,
Sandy, should Sandy be in here for this?
I would have thought. I'll call her. I can go in.
They always say, if it's dealing with money, you better get the auditor.
good idea.
Nobody ever calls me anyway about interests.
I could say.
Okay. But I'm gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order, 9:02 a.m. We do have a quorum. The commissioners are here. We welcome Bobby Phillips.
Thank you.
First one. And Mitch is not here at the moment. I just texted him to see if he's on his way. Are there any general announcements? Or none? Are there any public comments? No, no public comments? Okay. So we'll move right into item number 4, discuss, consider hiring a financial advisor. And I believe this is yours, Brandon.
Yes. We need to consider a financial advisor, not only for the jail, but also for the courthouse project, I guess. And I guess we need to pick one, have one leave the room and then talk to the other. I don't care, doesn't matter who wants to leave first or whatever. Okay.
So who do we have?
We have government capital, which just left, and then US capital finance,
US capital.
capital advisors. So government capital and US capital finance.
Okay,
Advisors. I get it.
all right.
Good morning. All right.
And you want to introduce yourself for the video?
Want to be there or here? Over there, okay.
Which one works best? You can use the corner of the table to put your stuff on if you'd like.
I guess we need to preface it, judge, what this is about discussing a bond and how we're gonna go about it with the jail project.
Thank you, sir.
And we have to have a financial advisor on board to get this thing done.
Yes, you explain that there's two different considerations. One is the financial advisor, the other is the bonding company, correct?
You're better explaining it.
Okay, so and so the presentations today are for the current one is for the financial advisor to help handle the bond financing of a jail and potential financing of improvements to a building that we may purchase. Okay.
All right,
Ready?
thank you very much. My name is Ben. For the record, my name is Ben Rosenberg, and I work with US Capital Advisors. We're a broker dealer firm, and we mainly specialize in county government, all kinds of government. We have about 200 customers around the state that are city, county, and schools. And so this first handout is going to go through some things. We provide a different alternative for the company that you've used in the past. And so I just want to give some things to think about as an alternative, and appreciate your consideration and your thought. So the first thing is, who are we and why are we here? And again, the company's name is US Capital Advisors. We're a broker dealer firm. We mainly specialize in wealth management. We manage about $7 billion in assets behind with individuals and institutions. Those are money managers on our firm. And there's about 8 of us that do public finance. So what is public finance? Public finance is helping cities, counties, and schools borrow money. And that's basically what we do. And about 200 customers across the state. So I had sent, I wanted to go to one page on this, I'd sent a handout back in October, when I first heard about you guys looking to borrow some money. And there's a bunch of information in here that I wanted to just start with first. And I have some handwritten pages of a lot of numbers. I'm thinking I'm going to page 7. Show you this for financing instruments that are available in campus. So you guys have gone down the path already and made some decisions, but I think on page 7, it's sort of like to go through some page looks like this, financing options that are available to families. So these are all governed by the state statutes. I didn't make these up. These are all governed by the statutes, and each financing instrument has different requirements and notice and voting and things like that that are required to borrow money. So counties aren't allowed just to go to the bank and borrow money. And so the Constitution it dictates which financing, how you can borrow money. And so the first three, general obligation bonds, certificates of obligation, and tax notes are the most common used by governmental entities, especially counties. The general obligation bond is, requires a vote of the public in May or November, and if you get, if you take this vote to the public, and if the voters approve it, then the financing instrument that you will use is a general obligation bond. And it can go up to 40 years in duration. It's backed by the full faith and credit of the county government, and you're pledging property taxes to pay it. And that's basically that instrument. If the county chooses not to go to a vote, you do have an option, do a certificate of obligation, which the legislature has allowed a workaround for taking the vote, because you can only do it twice a year, and it's very expensive to handle election. But to do the certificate of obligation instrument, you have to tell the citizens you plan to borrow money, and you have to do a notice of intent to borrow money, put it in the paper 2 consecutive weeks and wait for 45 days. And if you did that, you could borrow the money without doing a vote of the public. And then a tax note, again, 40 years on duration, full faith and credit of the county government. It's up to your choice if you would want to do a vote of the public or not. That's the county choice. The third most common is a tax note. Again, backed by the full faith and credit of the government, but it can only be 7 years in duration, so it's more for short-term borrowing. So the things that you're talking about here, tax note might not be an option. That requires no vote, no notice in the paper, just one commissioner's court meeting to approve the tax note. So those are the most three common financing instruments that are used. Again, that's just sort of information for you to think about.
What was the duration of the CO?
40 years.
40.
Statutorily, you can go up to 40 years. Now, if you can get somebody to lend you money for 40 years, that's a different question. Normally, you're borrowing money for 20 to 25 years, maybe even 30. But statutorily, like the federal government will lend money for 40 years, and you can use that instrument to borrow up to 40 years if you can find somebody to lend you for 40 years. Okay. Down below that, a couple things I want to talk about is the method of finance. There's two basic methods. There's this thing called the bond market. What is the bond market? The bond market is a series of banks and underwriting firms that lend money to municipal users around the country. And if you use the bond market, you can do a competitive market sale, which we recommend, or you can do a negotiated market sale. And I have a bunch more information on the other handout about those two methods and how they're different. So we'll get to that in a minute. It's sort of based on your credit. If you have good credit, which I've looked at your audit and your last 5 years of audits, and I'll show you I have that history. You do have good credit. We can take you to it requires a credit rating. And so we can take you we can go to one of the three credit rating agencies, Standard & Poor's, Moody's, or Fitch, and establish a credit rating. You don't have one that I could find. And then we basically take you to the bond market. Then we post a bond sale, and you can have, we will take Van Zandt County to the whole world bond market, and you'll have exposure to all the New York bond firms, regional firms, local firms. They will lend you money and they'll bid, and you'll get the lowest price on any given day if you bid this out competitively. And that's what we strongly feel. We've been doing this at the U.S. Capital Advisor for 13 years. Before that, my boss ran an underwriting desk for 30 years before that. And we had this suspicion that, competitive sales is going to give you the lowest and lowest competitive market interest rate. And so we did an empirical study back in 2016. And I sent that to you before in the school industry, all the bonds have to be bid competitive. And there's a PSF guarantee. So when they sell their bonds, they're all AAA guaranteed because the state guarantees it. So we figured that was a comparable study. And we did every comparable deal for a year in the school district industry. And every time again, a competitive sales on any given day is going to give you the lowest interest rate. And for you, the bond market is this thing over here that they're going to take and resell your bonds. To you, it's a loan. I need money, and I'm going to make payments twice a year. And you just want, my understanding is you guys just want the lowest payment and the lowest interest rate. And so we think empirical data and competitive analysis will show you that the market will do its thing. And if you bid it out competitively, you do it for every other transaction or commodity in the state. it just makes more sense to do this competitively as well. So if you don't have good credit, then there's private placement. So you can go to banking communities, they don't require a credit rating, but they do their own credit analysis, and you can do a private placement, and we can shop that through the banking community as well. But for your credit and for a general obligation bond, which you guys will talk about doing, a vote of the public, and that competitive market transaction is the best and the lowest cost of interest for you guys. And then lastly on here is where the money might come from. If not the bond market, there's federal and state agencies that do lend for different purposes. USDA, you want to deal with the federal government, I don't recommend it. It's going to take you 3 years to probably get the money. And then the state has Texas Water Development Board, which lends money, but only for water and sewer projects. So that's not applicable here. So I just want to talk a little bit on that handout that I sent back in October. Some of you that are new didn't get this. I wanted to have printouts of all the information about the county and how I can sort of look at your financial history and recommend an approach. Any questions on that, instruments or?
How long does it typically take to get a credit rating if we were to seek a credit rating from one of those three?
About a month. What we do is we prepare the offering documents. And I have a timetable here also to show you. I'm doing this for another county right now. You prepare the offering documents, you send it to the credit rating agency. They need a week or so to evaluate your credit. They look at these standard documents and they'll put together questions, and we'll put together a rating presentation for the county and secure your best credit rating. And again, that's going to be based on your financials and your credit history and that's what we can help you prepare for. And it takes, and then about 2 weeks, another week or so for them to give the rating and to establish a credit rating.
In the event that you pursue one path, which is the negotiated compared to the other route, if you pursue one, are you foreclosed from the other?
No, sir.
So if you do a competitive, you're not foreclosed from negotiated,
No, sir.
or vice
Or
versa.
vice versa. You could do a GO and you get your obligation bond and a tax note in the same year for different purposes. Or you can do a CO. I mean, it's not dictated. There are some other things I'm going to talk about next that would affect that, but not. You have those three options to choose from.
Is it possible to pursue two paths at one time?
You could.
And I may be jumping the gun here again, but in the event that we sign on with you, what amounts of money are you requiring up front, or are you paid out of the out of the total package on the backside?
Yeah, we're all in this industry again. So my daughter now that's 24 years old, 15 years ago when I got in this business, I'm going to go out and meet these people, and we're going to talk about financing. When they borrow some money, someday I'll get paid. This is not a very good model, Daddy, but yeah, we all get paid on a contingent fee, and if you don't borrow money, we don't get paid. And if you do a bond election and doesn't pass, we don't get paid. So that's pretty much standard in the industry.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So now back to this page 2 here, I call this sort of table of contents. So what we're going to talk about first, we're going to talk about the financing instruments that are available, who we are, why we're here. And I think we can offer a different approach. And then these next 3 things, county's credit rating, which I touched on briefly. Single most, if you look at page 3, 3 and 4 about us again, our goal is to get you lowest cost, lowest interest rate. On page 5, county's credit rating. There is a company in New York that sets the municipal daily MMD, municipal market data daily interest rate. And so based on that, all the world politics go into the MMD. And so based on when you go to do a market sale, the MMD for that day, they set the interest rate, all the world politics go into that, supply and demand that day. And the third most important thing is your credit rating. And so if we specialize in taking to the market, and we specialize in securing or helping you secure the best credit rate. Now we can only do so much because it's really based on your financials. And so to that effect, I've looked at your audits for the last 5 years. And your main operating fund is your general fund. You have a strong fund operating excess of revenues over expenditures every year. You're positive, that's great. And more importantly, you've built up a nice fund balance up to $12 million as of last fiscal year. 82% of the operating budget is in your fund balance. The financial underwriters look at 25 to 30% as a barometer. You're well above that. You have a strong credit rating. I think if you have a strong credit, and I think the best approach is to take it to the market and let the market do its thing and bid out the rates. The second page there is just your debt service fund. You can see your debt was paid off last year. And so also a good time now to potentially borrow if your other debt is paid off. You have a little bit of a leeway there on your operating expenses. The next thing to think about, or you might need to think about, is what we call bank qualified versus non-bank qualified. This is on page 8. In the government market, a designation of a bank qualified is anything below $10 million in a calendar year. Now, because you're looking to borrow or do this bond election in May, this might not apply, but I wanted you to think about it because anything in bond bank qualified rates are normally 25 to 50 basis points cheaper than non-bank qualified rates. And so it's sort of like a jumbo mortgage on your house. If you get to buy a over $500,000 house, your rates are higher because they figure the risk is higher. And so if you could borrow less than $10 million any calendar year, that would save you some money. And here on page 9 is an example. We did this for Waller County when they were doing a jail back in 16 and 17. They did a November election. So we're able to do a $10 million issue in December. And then the balance of $30 million in the following March or April, sorry. And that saved them, over $373,000 in interest costs. Just by doing that, just by splitting that in, even though there was more cost of issuance for the two issues, they saved over $370,000 in interest by splitting that. So these are things you need to think about as doing if you're going to do a big bond issue in May, that might not help you, but you have some other issues that might. You might borrow some now on bank qualified rate and do the others the following year. It might not work out calendar-wise, but I want you to think about it and let you know that's available. Then on page 10 shows the competitors market sale transaction. And now I have 2 or 3 pages here, and I have a Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA, recommends competitive market transaction if you're creditworthy, if it's a general obligation bond, if it's it's supported by taxes. The market understands it, the market likes it, especially if you have good credit. And so again, don't just take my word for it. I think the GFOA National GFOA recommends for this type of transaction, unless you're doing some variable rate financing or something that's not normal, the competitive market transaction is going to give you the lowest interest rate. So that's what sort of 10, 11, and 12 are excerpts from that study.
On that, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
On the competitive, say the interest rate's 8%, hypothetically, and then 2 years from now it drops down to 5%. Could we renegotiate that interest rate, or is it a fixed interest rate through the whole term?
Well, the beauty of it is it's going to be a fixed rate. So there'll be actually a scale. So from 1 to 30 years, each year has its own rate, and so it looks like it varies, but it's fixed for 30 years. Most of the market transactions require a 10-year, what they call a 10-year call feature. After 10, they want you to make payments for 10 years, and after that, you can refinance it or pay it off if you have money to do that. That's pretty much standard. You might be able to get set 8 or 9 years without costing you. You can in the days when the interest rates were really low, it wasn't as big an issue now, but if you wanted more flexibility in that 10-year call feature, but you can ask for 7 or 8 years if you like. But you do have to make payments for at least 7 to 8 years without refinancing. And believe me, we monitor all our customers' debt, and when there's in the low interest rate environment, if there's an opportunity for you to save money, we're going to present that to you. So in that first table that I sent you, the 30 pages of information about the county office of MAC, Municipal Advisory Council of Texas, the quasi-governmental entity. Look on page 15. I just sort of compared a little comparison between ourselves and our friendly competitors in the capital, which I know that you had. Since 2013, since we came over here to U.S. Capitol, you can see the number of transactions that we have done. 690 transactions total. We've done 445. Ours total transaction 8.4 billion, theirs 2.2 billion. The thing to highlight in yellow, of the 690.
Mr. Rosenberg, can I stop for just a minute?
Yes, sir.
Page 15 is on this one is Van Zandt County's financial statement.
Oh,
So I may be on a different page.
No.
It's the right page. I think this page.
It's in the wrong, yeah.
It's you, Cliff.
I thought we were talking,
This one? Would be the wrong page?
no.
No,
I was,
we're in the wrong book.
yeah, we thought you were talking about the one with 30 pages.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
All right.
That one has all the municipal data about the county. Which we can go through if you have, I just didn't want to take too much of your time, but page 15 of this just shows a comparative of the two companies, what we've done. Of the 609 transactions we've done, 462 have been competitive market transactions. And of the 445, the government capital they've done two. So, that's just some comparative data I'd like to share with you. Next few things to think about is timetable. You asked me how long would it take? So, I have Wallet kind of is doing an issue right now as we speak, and here's the exact timetable I pulled from them. We started in February, in December, and we're actually going to have the money by February, so we could actually do the whole issuance in about 3 months. There's a little less because we've done deals for them, every year, and so we've condensed this a little bit. But in here, you can see in the middle of this, we prepared the offering documents. We send them to S&P as their credit rating agency, and we'll have a rating call in 2 weeks, and we'll have the rating by the end of the month. So it takes about a month to prepare the documents, give the credit rating agency the time to do their analysis, and then issue the rating. And that rating is only good for 6 months after it's issued. That's an actual timetable. And then lastly, since you're doing a bond election, I gave you some election brochures, some samples. If you're going to do a bond election, you need to prepare and offer this to the public. And then I did one for Waller County and their analysis to build or not to build, and the cost for shipping prisoners out and not, or keep them home versus the cost of debt. And then Boston County did one, and then the school election too, but everything they do is in bond election. I just want to give you some samples of things again to think about. So that was really it. Any questions on that handout? How it might be different.
What year was this Waller County?
2017, 16 and 17.
16, 17, 40 minutes.
Yeah, I was just looking at it, I was like, well, this ain't today's.
Oh, right. Right. And then I had one other thing, just to, you have just give you one paper, give you view. We had done this in November, a tax rate analysis. She said, okay, what's $100 million deal or issue going to cost the county on the tax rate? And I did 100 and 120 million just to show you based on your current values and your growth rate and your assessed valuations. So this is sort of the standard analysis that we do. Two scenarios, 100 and 120 million, and we did 20-year amortization. We could do that a little longer, and then most importantly, what's it going to cost the average homeowner? And so on page 4, those two scenarios, and it's going to be for 11 or 13 cents based on the values, and we looked at that based on page 5, and have a 20-year history of your assessed valuation, how nice it's increased. On the last 10-year average, about 9% growth. In the last 5 years, 14% growth. Again, this is off the MAC website, and they get that right from your appraisal district. And so to do our analysis, we were conservative, and this one to show a 3% growth on page 6, 3% growth for 5 years. Hoping that you would beat that and the tax rate would be less. There's on $100 million, 4.4% interest rate estimate back in November when we did this. And that would be about a 11-cent increase to your INS tax.
And this is on a 25-year.
It's on 20.
20-year?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
25 to 50 is 25.
25 years, sorry. Yeah. I've done multiple options. I guess this is 25 years. Yeah. And then if you look at forwards, 120 million is about 13 cents. And then lastly, on page 8 is a median home value in the county of 181,000. And so that shows about $203 a year on 100 million, or 243 million, $243, sorry, on 120 million. Based on that tax rate increase in the current values.
And that will go down as the county grows.
And right, if it's anything more than 3%, now, we're looking at that value that your growth over the last 25 years. There was a couple negative years. We're talking about 25 years out,
Right.
but your most recent history, that's why we just did a 3% growth factor. The one thing, when you get to that page, the one thing you do the bond issue, the only thing that's constant would be the debt payment. Your debt payment would be set.
Right.
And then every year you're gonna set your own tax rate based on the EV that you get that year. And your operational budget that you do each year, but let's just put some assumptions on paper and put it just to see what the cost would be to you and most importantly the taxpayer. And then the rest of this is just all supporting document for the actual debt service runs and computer runs if you want to dig into that.
Is it common or uncommon for the financial group to provide assistance related to or information related to getting a bond passed?
Well, there's, and the last thing on my list was, there is a specific timetable, an election timetable that would be provided by a bond lawyer that had a senior agenda if you're looking to hire one. So that's all governed by the legislature and the dates. There's a 2-week window. You have to call the election, and so many days you have to do the posting notices in election places, and then helping you prepare for your credit rating and sample brochures on how you can publicize this. That's really what we provide. If you want us to come to a public meeting, we can. Normally, citizens don't want to see us talking about this. They want to hear you talking about the project. And there are certain laws that dictate what you can and can't say once you call upon an election. I.e., you can tell people you got to vote, but you can't necessarily use county money. And again, this is the lawyer will tell you exactly what you can and can't say and what you can and cannot use public funds for. Any questions? Appreciate your time and attention, and I'll sit around while my colleagues come in and do their thing and hear your results. Okay. Thank you very much.
I'd point out that we're so strong here, not only because of the Commissioners Court, but in large part to Sandy back there in the back, who's done a fabulous job taking care of us.
Good job.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah. Oh, y'all. Doing all right this morning?
You're doing well.
Yeah. You gotta hand some stuff out. Put that iPad there. Well, if I look a little bleary eyed, it's because my wife and I'm Drew Whittington, by the way, this is Wade Thompson. Before we get into the presentation, my wife and I chose to take instead of doing like Christmas present for our kids, we chose to do an experience this year. So we took them to Orlando, to Universal Studios to do the New Year's Eve. By the way, it's a horrible idea. I'm just telling you, to be in Orlando with it felt like 200 million other people. It's a bad idea, but they had a lot of fun. It was great memories. Sorry if I look a little bleary eyed, it's because of that. So thank you, Red Bull and Monster for giving me this morning. You
got in last night, right?
Yes, sir. Got in. I was on Judge Reese. Got in. I think our plane landed at 9:40 last night. So yeah. anyways, all right, well, we're gonna kick it off real quick. What we'll do is I'll go through a few things, a few of these pages, talk about it, then Wayne's gonna talk about some of the other items. And then we'll kind of concur with some of the future stuff for it. So a little bit about myself. I'm born and raised in Keller, Texas, if you know where that is, if you know where Cabela's is off of 170, I live up from there. So been doing financing for about 15 years. I worked on the equipment side of government capital, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and then moved over to the bond side and have been here ever since. And as y'all's financial advisor, we love working and helping y'all out. That's a little bit about myself. And then Wade.
Sure, my name's Wade Thompson, and I've been doing tax exempt bonds of some kind since 1995. I started at TASB, Texas Association of School Boards, January 95, and I got to Houston. And I did TASB. TASB used to have a financing program. I did Lone Star Investment Pool, which a lot of not counties invest in, but I also did tax exempt bonds for him. I started doing bond elections in 2004. And I even had 6 years at TASB buy board. Buy board did some projects with Texas Association of County. What was the buy board? I was the North Director of the buy board for 6 years, and my 30-odd years doing this kind of work. So kind of a rounded investments, financing, public sector financing, as well as even the bidding and on the buy board side. I just helped. I used to visit Sandy, in fact, as the buy board rep, because I've had this territory. And this area, which is also Region 7 for all the schools out here. I've been coming here since 1995, so I really know the area and a lot of the folks in East Texas. So, and but I've been government capital since 2018. So now it's 25. Been going to my 7th year in government capital, but 30 years online of experience. So,
all right, so that's just about us. So we'll kind of start moving through this. If you go to that first page, trust isn't just given to anyone, and we firmly believe that. Our company was founded in 1992, which, by the way, if you're a musical person, 1992 was an amazing year. It was the year that H Break Your Heart came out, or Baby Got Back. So depending upon your upbringing, that shows you what songs, or if you're like me, both songs play in my head. Like that, and that's not a good compilation, by the way. So we've been in 1992. We have 2 companies. We have one that does equipment financing, like we talked about earlier, and then government capital securities as a financial advisor. With that being said, been all over the United States, all types of financing equipment, school districts, any type of those things. All right, so moving right along. Okay, on page 2004 actually is Van Zandt County Commissioner Court hired government capital securities as the financial advisor. And so real quick on that, we have one of the things about that agreement, that financial advisor agreement, basically it renews every year unless we're told otherwise. So it's a 1-year agreement, but it automatically renews. And basically the way it works out is if you decide to go a different route, it's a 30-day written notice, and then we're fired. No money exchange. It's only if you have a bond issue. That's why that's 2004 financial advisor. And we actually, the first project was the current jail that is being used. That was back in 2004.
Do we pay you anything for that annual contract?
No, sir.
no.
No, sir. And then the next one, GCSC advisor, Ted Christensen and Mike Brown. Those were actually your first 2. Ted is actually our boss. And Mike Brown actually lives in Sulphur Springs, or Suffern Springs, as he calls it. Thank you, someone laughed back there. So with that being said, that's who y'all's financial advisors were back in 2004, who have helped you. And again, same firm, Ted Christensen is our boss.
Yeah, Ted's our boss, so he's actually the one you guys hired with Mike Brown, and so he's been working with you guys for this whole period, since we got hired in 2004. So Ted is the one that's going to be overseeing everything we do. Every bond we do goes through Ted's boss. He's also our compliance officer, that we are constantly keeping our counties, cities, school districts in compliance with not just state law but federal law. And part of that is we're a securities firm. Is he's the one that he has access to all our emails, and he reviews every deal. And he's a former Navy pilot, very by the numbers guy, and he'll be supervising everything we do for you guys as he always has. So that he's been working with you a long time, so.
So we start out with Judge Fisher, then Rita, Judge Don Kirkpatrick, County Auditor John Shin. We worked with a long time. Real quick side note on that. When I first started with Government Capital in 2009, I came out with my boss at the time, her name's Cynthia Cakes, who works with y'all on the equipment side. And she actually said, hey, Drew, you've never probably been to a county courthouse. So let's go for a quick ride. They're doing a new building. It was the one, if I remember right, in Wells Point is the annex building. Yes. So they're like, hey, it's a brand new, the Government Capital Securities funded it. They're doing a ribbon cutting today. Let's go visit out there and go hang out. So we came out here, I got to meet John Shin. Actually got to see his office. And by the way, he loved Dr. Pepper. That was great. I remember that. He actually also helped me realize that I never want to be on the wrong side of the law, because he found out that I'd never been through a courthouse. So he took us up to the top floor to the old jail and went to the drunk tank that had the guts of the locking mechanism out. And he's like, hey, take a look in there. So Stephanie and I go walking in there, and he closed the door behind us. To this day, I can still hear the clanging of that. I was like, don't get me out. I don't want to be here anymore. So then we went to lunch at the ribbon cutting at the cafe there. I think it was Blue Cafe, if I remember, or something like that. Bluebird, thank you. That's it. And I got to meet his son, who's LJP4. Right, is that right? Yes, Scott Shin. Yeah, such a great guy. It was a really great visit. So anyways, really neat thing. And also, Mike Brown, who we mentioned earlier, still goes fishing with Shin on a regular basis. So I'm sure their catches are always perfect.
Mike's retired.
Mike's
retired.
So anyways, also, we've been working with y'all, especially with Sandy, and congratulations to her for the retirement. Retiring. I don't know how you can retire at 23, right? 23 years old? Yes, okay. But anyways, with that being said, Government Capital Securities, again, we have some relationships here in Van Zandt County, City of Wills Point, City of Grand Sling ISD. And then I mentioned earlier that Government Capital Corporation, the equipment side, that's when we actually started working in 2002, doing some transactions for the county. We did the Government Capital Corporation again. That's everything from doing some motor graders to police cars to election equipment. Did about 36 transactions over the last few years, or the last 22 years. And so, and with that being said, in your county, everything from Edgewood ISD to Maybank ISD, City of Maybank, and a bunch of other ones in your county that we've worked with as well. So not just Government Capital Corporation to equipment, the Government Capital Securities financial advisor with doing bond elections. Any questions on that, by the way? Any questions? No? Okay. All right, we'll go to the next page. So if you look at that GCSC Van Zandt County issuances, I would say that 5 times. So that first one on the very top, that 1.5 million, that's what was that for the current jail. That what I mentioned that earlier. And then if you look through that, you'll see certificate of obligation, i.e. CO, then tax notes, more certificates of obligation, tax notes, and then TAN, which is tax anticipation note. So all of those are the ones that we have done over the years, and you'll basically been debt free since 2012.
That's the last issue you had. So you basically you're debt free as far as the public markets. You've been and we'll get we talk about the INS saturated future slide show, but yeah, you haven't had any debt in that sense as a bond or a security out there in the marketplace.
So on that note, so basically when we're talking about doing a new certificate of obligation, whether it be for the county courthouse or for a general obligation bond for the jail. So with that being said, you're going to be going out to the market relatively new in the bond market. So it's kind of like this. If let's say you and your spouse, you buy a house in your late 20s and 30s, you buy a house and you pay it off eventually. And then in your 60s, you go back out to buy a new house. Well, yes, you paid off your house, but you haven't been out and gotten a mortgage, if you will, right? So So the market doesn't know you. You're kind of new, if you will. Yes, you're established, but you're new. So that's kind of what we're talking about is y'all paid off any bond issuances over the past so you're all new to the market. So that's going to the market. So it's not like Dallas County or even Fort Bend County. They're well known because they're issuing every few years, if not every year like Dallas County. Does that make sense? So y'all, that's why we wanted to point out that you've done multiple transactions, but in the last 10 or so years, you haven't. Questions on that?
Can you explain what difference between tax note and a tax anticipation note?
A TAN is an intra-year, so usually that's something where you're just handling a fiscal deficit using tax exempt markets to borrow cheaper than you probably would, just to handle an intra-year deficit. School districts do these a whole lot, for example, because they might be, property, if they're property wealthy, they don't get all their money in January, February, but in November, December, they might need to borrow money to cover those last few payroll.
Okay.
So that year must have been a year in
Yeah.
which you just needed to do an entry year. And it was probably cheaper than your local bank or any other option.
Another example would be, you remember when we had snow apocalypse or snow hit, remember all those a couple of years ago?
Snowmageddon.
Snowmageddon, thank you, yes. And everybody used a bunch of electricity and then cities, counties and schools got these huge electric bills, right? So that's a lot of times with tax anticipation, but like, hey, we know we're gonna get revenue to pay this bill, but we don't have a bill that's 4 or 5 times more than what we are used to. So we would do a tax anticipation of, because it's limited to 1 year. In that you
And
have
it
to
would
pay off.
be within your audit year, so for example, like Sandy knows this, you would close it out before your fiscal year would start, something that would not even be in your audit at the end of the year on those books, because it's been paid back. And then some entities out there, I've had to do multiple TANs over years. I remember I did College Station ISD about 4 or 5 straight years, because they just were a properly wealthy area, but they're kind of running out of money for about 6 weeks, and then they're flush with cash when all those tax receipts come in January. So it looks like you only had to do that really briefly.
And the tax,
So must have been something that year.
in the tax note, the reason that's called it's actually a limited tax note, so it's limited to 7 years.
Okay.
And the reason that one is because it's a shorter term. So it's typically the dollar amounts are a little bit smaller, whereas certificate of obligation, you can go out 20, 30 years.
Those are defined by the state, really. They've got laws that say 7 years or less is the tax note. You have to go more on the payback than it's CO. It's just merely a year designation. It's a different type of law, a different section code. How about that?
Does that help answer your question? Between
Yes,
the
it does.
differences?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Now, next week, so we haven't had to actually issue any debt on the security side. Now, on the equipment side, you've probably done quite a few with
The next page is this one.
But this conduit is something. Oh, you want-
No, go ahead.
Okay, well, so one of the things that we started doing with you in 2011 was you're what we call a conduit issuer with your cultural committee. And I did speak to the court last time we did one, which was the St. John's Prep School. But if you notice this list here, all 501c3 organizations, you've got the YMCA, you've got St. John's Prep School, that's in Katy, by the way. Post Oak School, I think that's in the Houston area. Mary Hardin Baylor, that's in Temple.
Mary Hardin Baylor.
But that's a private college, that is not a public school. So if you notice, these are all private entities, and Dallas Lighthouse for the Blind, for example, Performing Arts Center, and then Hobby School. So usually what this is we know these entities that want to borrow at tax exempt rates, and you guys, if you aren't using your tax exempt status, you're allowed by law to let one of these 501c3s, but typically you earn a fee. So we're probably one of the few financial advisors, because I've only got 2 in the area I cover for Government Capital. I've got a city north of Houston that does these, and I've got y'all. And the last one was the Katy one. The prep school paid you $15,000 for that one. And Sandy's been, she's been about these all these years, because we come to you guys with conduits or Judge Kirkpatrick, Judge Reese, and you don't necessarily do them with everyone. It's up to you guys. They usually say, this is the debt we're financing. It's not your debt, it's theirs. It's very clear that all they're doing is getting tax exempt debt. So they get to borrow cheaper than they would without you. So you earn a fee for that. And so we kind of touted it because we used to give the county and the city the one I have, we've got about 7, I think, in the state of Texas. that we do this for, but I've just got two. I've got y'all and I've got the city of North Houston that set up a committee for this. And you earn more than 100,000 in that time because you earn usually something between 10,000 and 15,000 every one of those deals. And I think all in there was 8 or 9 of those. And so we tallied it up. I did with Ted, Ted Christensen, my boss. We figured it was about a little over 100,000, but we just said it's probably in excess, but it gives you a pretty good idea. So we're one of the few financial advisors that actually made you money. Okay, so I just want to talk about the history. So
Do you have any questions on that?
No.
yeah, I mean, if you haven't had the issue yet, and you, because you've been sort of debt free, you've been able to help a lot of these entities out through your conduit agreements and so. But it's not your debt, it's not your obligation, it's just you allowing them to use that tax and status. It's a real good thing.
So basically, you're getting money to help other entities.
Right,
All legal.
Without incurring any liability whatsoever.
Exactly.
exactly.
It's
Correct.
actually really, just on a side note, it's a really neat thing. I have another city just south of basically Fort Worth. Is they're actually doing a private school south of Houston. And this one is actually, they're doing their second, the school is doing the second phase. And they're borrowing about $9 million. And this city was getting a check for, actually, it just funded last week for about $12,500 for helping them out. And this is an instance, this city this is a great little way for them to incur some funds. And the neat thing about it is the money that you're getting paid for this fee is you can use it for anything.
It's just general fund.
Just general fund money.
Yeah.
And that's just part of the services we bring to you as your financial advisor.
So we've been doing that, really, I think you did the first time, we got set up in 2011, but we've done about 9, I believe. And as they come up, I usually just visit, and say, you guys are interested in helping this one out. But if you're issuing tax exempt debt, and like say, for example, this election passes and you issue it, you can't do one, because you can't. It has to be a year in which you're not doing tax database.
Any questions on that one?
No.
No, okay. All right, let's go to the next page.
Yeah, this is more or less we wanted to give you a history of your assessed value, where you've come as a county. And you look in the upper left, it's 2010 to 24. I always have to get my readers out here to see these numbers get a little small.
I don't have to get my readers out.
He's younger than me, but anyway.
Before we start on this,
Yes, sir.
Sure.
I think it needs some corrections that Sandy and Keith can help me here. The road maintenance tax, when will we start that? You remember the year?
2016, 17.
17?
17.
Oh, we just started.
Okay, we can fix that.
17 was the first year we got the money.
Okay.
I guess we had it down here starting in 23. All right. As we basically did this over the holidays, I usually will probably have a chance to visit with Sandy, make sure, but yeah, we will correct that. I had it here, I see that the percentage on my office that set this up, but that 10 cents at the bottom, we'll fix it.
Thank you for catching that.
Yeah, anything like this, we usually collaborate with the county, particularly if you're gonna be doing anything publicly distributable, and just say, hey, check everything here, make sure it's correct, so I'm glad you brought that for us. So.
That just changed the total tax rate. That was kind of a
Yeah,
big deal.
I'm sorry about that, I see that now, and we will fix that, but really, as a whole, I just kind of wanted to show you where you've been, where you're going. You were at 2.3 billion in assessed value. This is just the assessed value from the MAC report, Municipal Advisory Council. And then here you are, just kind of shy of 6 billion, a little under that in terms of taxable assessed value. And the percent change over 5 and 10 years. I mean, really, you more than doubled, really, since 2014 you were 2.3, and now here's at 5.65 billion. And then you have your M&O-INS, and we'll get that correct on the total tax rate. But
Any questions on that page?
graphically, it's on the next page. You can kind of just see here too, just focusing on your assessed value. And one reason why I'll point this out is that if you issue a flat debt service, let's say this election passes, you sell a flat bond, it's very likely that if you continue growing like this, you start out with, say, a 4 or 5% tax increase, it's going to drift down. And if you continue to grow, but if you notice in the graph, you were kind of stable for many, many years. You kind of shot up over the last 5. This is the first year where it actually hedged it back down. But
that's where the 10 cents comes in. That graph is going to change.
Yeah,
It's going to be going down
exactly.
for the past 5-6 years.
Yes, sir. And then the next page, that's got actually your tax rate. You're right. You can see how your tax rate is drifted down. And this is the historical values versus total tax rate. Of course, we need to correct that one area there. But if you notice, the tax rate was a lot higher. The overall tax rate was highest in 17 that drifted down, and then it's just come back up a little bit. And then the bar value there shows your underlying value. So. And it just shows you that your total tax rate has drifted down over the years. It's just how many pennies. If you, the main thing you're doing right now is figure out how much bond we can go for. And we will show you anytime we work with one entity doing a bond, they give us ideas. Let's look at 15, 20, 30, 45 million over these many years. We'll run every one of those scenarios for you to help you fashion and form your bond here. Because really, timing wise, we got a month here. You've got to call a bond between February 3rd and February 14th. So a lot of decisions to be made, but we'll be on our toes. We're based in the Metroplex. You need Drew, even Ted. If you need us to come out, we will support you. Budget workshop, commissioner sports meeting. It's I live in Van Old City. He's in the Metroplex. We'll be here anytime we need us between now and then support you throughout the bond election until the election day, of course. So
In fact, my uncle lives in Van. And he said, anytime I come out here, I come by the house and get food. So especially if y'all have there good food. So especially if you need to come out.
But all these perspectives, and then two, sorry about the little margin there on the print, but one thing I wanted to kind of point out is you don't have one big taxpayer or a whole lot of what they think in the bond market is concentration risk. There's some folks I dealt with that might have 50%, and it's in like down in Beaumont that they have a paper plan that's half their tax base. And I had one of my clients had an international paper just shuttered, and they were a big factory that was with a huge percentage of their total tax base. You guys are pretty well diversified because these are your top 10 taxpayers. You know, Morton Salt, Encore Electric Delivery, down to Brookshire Grocery, but you don't have one taxpayer that's a huge percentage of your tax base.
And the reason that's really important is so when we go to market to sell the bonds per se, they're gonna look at this and say, okay, where does their tax come from? Where does that revenue come from? So when it's diverse like this, the bond market looks at it and goes, okay, they're more stable. So if one entity goes out, they're covered by the rest of it. Does that make sense?
Because if the bond passes and we go to market with it, we're gonna get a public rating, like Standard & Poor's, Moody's are the main two ones we're probably used to. And that's something that they're gonna bring up. And once the election passes and we get to the point where we issue bonds, we'll go through the rating process. And having diversified tax base like that is good because it shows
It's stable.
Yeah, because international paper shuttered on this, these folks I was working with, and it was just, they were working on Friday and they were told not to show up on Monday, and international paper shut down 3 plants nationwide, and they happened to pick one right outside of Beaumont that affected one of my plants drastically.
Any questions on the top 10 taxpayers?
Right, so you can move to the next page there.
The area county comparison, if you look at that next page.
So you can see that, y'all, and there are 3 other counties nearby, they're here that do not have any outstanding bonds. We got a population count there. Most of these numbers, if they're slightly off, you're probably gonna have to argue with Municipal Advisory Council of Texas because they're the nonprofit that gets a lot of these things together. But you can see that, like Smith, of course, in the Tyler area has 217 million outstanding bonds, but you've got some neighbors with no INS. But that doesn't mean necessarily that they don't have a CO or anything like that, that they might have done in the past, kind of like y'all, where they pay them off and because the part on the right there, the most recent issue in terms of a multi-year, you can see how the last one y'all did was quite some time ago. But those conduits don't count. It's not really your debt. So those conduits I talked about don't apply here. But
All of that on that list, Navarro County, or as they say, Navarra County, we're their financial advisor as well.
yeah, so when you look through this, it's just to kind of give you a comparison. We'll help you with any kind of information like that. It's fair that you might want to public distribute because after you call election, we can get, all manner of information.
So this is really important. So for example, at the general election for the jail, this is also really important to show to your constituents, hey, we're not just out here trying to spend money for whatever reason. Does that make sense? It's like, these are the other counties in comparison to us. So if people have an understanding of what is outside of Zandt County and how does that compare to your neighbors or to other counties that are similar? Does that help? Does that help make sense? Okay. All right.
Moving on, I know probably, you know, pretty much any,
That's a good stage.
the election. The reason Jackson Walker, they're the law firm that we've been working with for all your conduits. So Jackson Walker, there are kind of three main attorneys that deal with your one Dallas-based money and a host up, and then I'm going to get visits with I believe your attorney. Yeah. And Todd Brewer, and then members like sort of paralegal that gets you all. They're the ones that will help you call the bond and run the election. Now since we had been using them for your conduit, you assume you probably want to keep using them, but we'll work with any bond counsel. If the conduit recommends a different one, we have a whole bunch of bond counsels that I've worked with a whole bunch of in my career. I'd say probably 10 different public finance firms over the years.
So the guys he's talking about are the ones who help with your past bonds, and they're the ones that help with your conduit as well.
So a few months back with Brandon and the rest of the folks, we did give you the counter from Jackson Walker. I just wanted to summarize it for the court. You know, the most important dates I pulled out of there, but I see an asterisk at the bottom that that's from right from their bond caliber, and you guys got that kind of time.
One thing really important to point out is that first page, that first bullet point, February 3rd to February 14th. That is, you probably already know this, that is the window you're able to call an election. And that's state mandated. So why do they pick that? I don't know. Why do they do it so confined? I don't know. It's the state. Who understands what the state wants to do, right?
It's just become more restricted. It used to be you could go 4 times a year when I started in business. Right? Yeah, they're down to 2. They're talking about just going down to 1 and just having November only. So just
any questions on this schedule or timeline? Well, any questions on that? No. Okay.
So now the next one on Methodist sale, you know, there are multiple ways you can bring bond to market. There's competitive, there's negotiated, and private placement. Now, private placements, we usually only do those for very small bonds. I mean, private placement is a best bank bidder that we can find. And the way this works is we don't ever take custody of your bonds. We place them, or we're out to get you the best rate, but take you to the best way. We know how, and Ted knows how, through our whole staff. We've got about 6 other public finance people. And now the competitive, we can do it any way you want. And it's usually collaborative because we usually make recommendations, but we want to show you the advantages and disadvantages of going one way or the other. Negotiated is when you name underwriters and you put them in. So if you have a $40 million bond, you might want to have 3 or 4 underwriters put in on a negotiated sale. And these are all bond salesmen that pre-market, they start calling their banks, all their member banks, to put in bids for your bonds. And let's just say you were going on a Tuesday, they're probably making calls a week ahead to get all the orders in or get the orders in line so that they can sort of pre-market your bond. Now, competitive is very much subject to the exact day you go, the time they're due, just like any bid. You know, bids are due at 10 a.m. on a particular date. And usually in bond market, they're going to want to do it about within 24 hours of when you meet to approve, because they're trying to place money, set it up, and commit to you. And it's an offer. And you have, if you vote yes or you vote no, that's the competitive sale process. So you get exactly the best bidder at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. or whatever that date is. And it might be 0.01, 0.02 better than the next bidder, who would be your cover bid. And then there might be quite a lot that are trying to lowball the bid that day.
Did y'all hear about competitive from these? Okay,
Right.
So y'all probably heard about that. So I want to dive into a little bit just differentiation on that. Is with competitive versus negotiated. When you sell equipment from the county, people bid on it, right? They send you a bid. Those are the ones that you take. You really don't get a choice. It's those are it. That's the best way to comparison about competitive. That's all you get. Those are it. Negotiated, you have a little bit more of a runway to understand what is out there. Is, hey, you know what? We're getting this numbers in. Everybody's already looking at it. They're giving us some numbers before we even get to the meeting to approve it. That's the best way to describe it.
And we get those to the counties before the city and school district. So 3 days prior, you're already seeing an idea what your rate is we're making sure it's tied into market, Ted's policing that pricing.
Y'all know, where Lakeport is, the city of Lakeport?
Do you have any difference in negotiated and contract-based rates that you could give a comparison on? You're saying that one's better than the other, but without,
Actually,
No, we're not.
No, we're not.
well,
We go.
you know, you're saying that on one, you just get what you get, and on the other one, you can negotiate this. So it seems like that
Yeah.
the natural tendency is to say that one, you know, is going to get you a better rate.
I'm glad you asked that. That's a great question. So the best way to describe it is, that's what I was saying, the differences between the two. We actually are ambivalent to which one to go. We actually give you all the information. And we go both ways.
But what,
Go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, usually what we would do is just, like on a negotiated sale, we just did a county deal that had some jail facilities. They had a local, they wanted to name and put in the deal. We were able to do so under negotiating. That was a $15 million project that had some jail facilities in it. And so,
You know where Frio County is?
But if one is not better than the other, it seems like a lot of big companies associated with large contracts choose to do these sealed bid entries for a particular purpose.
right.
Do you suppose that when a county builds a new water tower, they do it by sealed bid because they're required to, or because they believe that they get a better rate?
It depends on how they're doing it. The question on the sealed bid, when they're doing sealed bids, that's because they're going out to get those. You can actually do what's called buy board, which is a co-op. And you don't work to do it. So you actually work for buy board. So you don't have to. So that's kind of a little bit on that one. But as far as the differences between the competitive versus negotiated, we walk you through that whole process. And then as far as jails in particular, we actually did the research on it. And they are literally 50-50 across the state.
They're out of the counties that we had back in 2012 that went to the voters, those who passed, it was about 50-50 negotiated versus competitive. And I think Kaufman was one and Rockwell was one, they chose negotiated. So competitive, you get, here's what I wanted to say about competitive. You get you'll get the best rate at 10 a.m., 11 a.m. that day, but sometimes you're real subject to, California just decided to do a $4 billion bond the same day as you got it forward. That can happen. You also could be very subject to a bit of market risk, but you're not normally, because if, let's just say, a GDP number comes out or some number of bond rates move every day, and they can move sharply. Sometimes they can do 0.1 or 0.15%. And then you happen to come in today where you've exposed yourself to a short-term thing that happened. And when you go to negotiate sale, you can usually get an advisor and say, okay, well, let's go to day, let's wait. That's happened a lot in my career, also with refundings, because usually a public entity says, don't come back to the court until you, or the school board or the city council, until you say it's only 6% net present value. And interest rates are jumping around. And then when it gets over there, often having negotiated gives you that flexibility and quickness. You're not so static as this date, this time gives us the best rate. And the fear that a lot of people would have with a competitive, if you go to competitive and you don't like the short-term rate, because that example happens, you popped up 0.12% from the prior week. So you get something that looks, you know, like an eighth of a point worse for the next 20, 25, 30 years. You guys as a court, there's a point where your firm will come in and say, this is the offer to underwrite. And we tell you, you know, it was competitive still. This is the best. This is the cover bid. We got the best rate at 10 a.m. on the state. Sometimes we negotiate particular periods of market volatility where interest rates are going all over the place. You have a little more control to go day to day, to not even really bring it to the court until you guys are comfortable and say, hey, that's about the rate we've been expecting. And then you have a bit of more flexibility and maneuverability.
Also, I want to point out, we have the one next underneath that is a public sale versus private placement. I wanted to kind of dovetail the conversation of competitive versus negotiate into that. A private placement is if one bank buys the note, okay, for example, the certificate of obligation that we're talking about for the justice or the courthouse, is a bank can actually say, hey, we're going to buy all of that note. That's a private placement. So a bank just says, hey, we're going to buy it all.
Yeah, but you said private placements for the smaller size, and that's not
Correct.
necessarily
That's
what we're at.
That's what I'm saying first. So exactly. And that's for Well, what is small? Bank of America small versus Southside Bank.
One bank is not gonna wanna buy $30 million.
Right.
Does one preclude the ability to go after the other? If you start on the negotiated route, does it?
No, and that's why, you know, you wanna have a conversation now. If you pass the election, we're not selling bonds in July, folks. You got 6 or 7 months. So we'll have a new president here in about 3 weeks and, you know, now that's 25, we're on the 20th. Bond market is saying it moves every day. When we go to election, then you still have a period after that, a contest period, 30 days. You're talking about July, so we're talking about 6 or 7 months. The reason why we're not saying competitive is absolutely the best option, negotiated is absolutely the best option. You like to know what market version we're going out there. And it's sometimes, I mean, it doesn't have to be 9/11 or the Israeli attack or anything like that. There's also geopolitical risk, not just economic risk, but to the where rates are headed. Or, you know, in timing, it might be something where you guys want to have one sale to get started and then have another sale the following year. A lot of the jail issues I looked at from other counties as well, they split them into 2 different sales. And we had some that had negotiated, and as I said, it was about 50-50, but there were only about 11 or 12 counties that passed jail elections.
So if you
That
get a
was- I'll give you that
bond, so
spreadsheet, by
if you
the
go
way.
to a bond election, then you say you could still split it into
Yes,
2
sir.
bucks
You could,
or
absolutely.
3
You're not
bucks or
gonna
whatever you
issue
need
all
to
at
do.
once, which frankly is good.
Yeah,
go
because
high
you
grade
don't
on it.
want to do a $40 million, you know, let's say $40 million at one time. You want to split that up into your project.
These folks that just, you know, were looking at mortgage rates of 2 and change during COVID are now looking at over 7 on a 30-year mortgage, you know. Interest rates are important here. You're locked in for a very long time. And so there are some firms out there saying competitive is absolutely the best at all times, and they'll cherry pick numbers and they'll show you certain periods where, yeah, it happened to do better. But I'm just telling you over the broader period, sometimes you do better, sometimes you do worse. I mean, you guys might do a bid for a job where you get no bids at all. Some counties are like that. I can't even get them to bid on this, and I've got to satisfy bid law. And so at buy board, they would often use buy board contracts because they at least would somehow get some state support through the Texas Association of County Sponsored, county sponsored buy board for a lot of bids. Because bidding costs money. You got to pay for the ad, you got to do all that, and the labor involved. And sometimes bidding and bonds are really no different in the sense that you might have a lot of competition. You might even have another county that's issuing hundreds of millions on the same day on the calendar. And putting firms in, they know they're going to get bonds. They just have to put in bids and get it to a market rate, and they compete against each other. Literally, as I said, like days before, they're already trying to get all of their clients. These are bond salesmen that work for firms. They used to work with firms that did. They just all day, and they're getting the best bids they can get. They put them in. And all of you, the day of the sale, we can give you a password and you can watch it happen. You can watch our 2035 maturities got 4x now. There's 4 times demand and supply. You'll notice probably that rate will come down because that means that the appetite for that 2035 maturity is so good. Let's lower it 0.02 then. Because a whole lot of people want that maturity, want that bond. And the same with negotiated too. They might have a real good bid on 2038, but it's more than you intended to structure. So they can term up those bonds and basically 35, 36, 37, 38, make it a 38 maturity, but you guys are making the same payment with 60 fund for your escrow. See what I'm saying? So if you look at a really good like a mutual fund company or a very rich individual who really wants your bond and beat everybody, you kind of want to cater. That's where the negotiated really works because they can cater, put those bonds together, and grab you a better rate out there on the maturity curve. It's a 30 years.
So when you call the election, no, you're not required to go public or to go competitive.
No, that wasn't I'm familiar.
Yes, size wise,
No, my
you
question
could-
was whether you could do it in 2 tranches
Yeah.
or 3 tranches.
You can agree, yeah.
And that's answered.
You
Yeah.
could.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't want to get off topic. Anything else on that?
So make sure I
I
understand
think so.
what Chris is saying. So say you have $100 million bond, you're saying you could do 33 million for 7, 33 million for another 7, or 33 million for another 7, depending on those rates. And
Depending on when you need the
When you
money.
say 7, what do you mean?
7 years.
Oh, no,
Oh.
you're not required to go
Oh.
7 years. That's only.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm just using.
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
Okay, I got
yeah,
it.
for sure.
You can adjust the majority structure around, like a lot of folks we deal with already have certain bets and we're wrapping around existing to keep their tax rate. So sometimes they're paying less principal at the outset and paying more in the future, just so they have more of a stable tax rate throughout. But you guys are debt free. So if you want to go, we'll show you every year you want to look at really, but you absolutely, could do 7 years, you could do 20, you could do 30.
So you're basically you're gambling that you're hoping in 7 years it's lower than what it is at present time.
So basically, when you go out to the voters to approve, they're saying, yes, we give you authority to issue not to exceed X amount of dollars. So they're not saying you have to do it that one time, you have basically you can do it in tranches as many as you want.
Some authorize more than they ever sell. When you look at the municipal advisory councils, they'll say authorized but unissued, and you realize in 2004, somebody did a bond and they had 700,000 left over that they didn't have to use, and it's just sitting there because they didn't use it for the project. It has to go towards the stated project in your description of it. In other words, that's happened less and less due to building inflation these days. People use everything they set up typically. But yeah, you are not required to do 7 years, 7 and 7. You can do 15.
Yeah, I was just using that as an example. You could just
Yeah, you can stair
break
step
it into
your
chunks
tax
and
rate.
just hope that
Absolutely.
in X amount of years that interest rate's lower than what it is now.
Absolutely.
And if it's not, then you lost your gamble.
And then also,
It's a decision that you can make, and you could probably also be more defensive to do it, more of a longer term, so you get more flexibility, or if rates drop, you can
yeah, I
refinance.
was gonna say, you can also refinance it.
I mean, COVID, after 9/11, the real estate crisis, we got some really low, I had a lot of clients that was able to refinance a lot of bonds lower and help the taxpayer out, and save them millions of dollars just because rates crashed down, all that liquidity is out there, and you take these old bonds that are 4, 4.5 maybe, and you can get even refinance them with 2 1/4, retire those, and then you have to do debt service.
One example I'm gonna give you real quick is from the negotiated to a public sale, city of Lakeport, which is outside of Longview. They came to us and said, hey, we want to go into City Hall, but we want to do a certificate of obligation, but we want to go 30 years. Because that's what we're comfortable with those payments. Now granted, it's a really small town. But what we did is we actually went to a public sale. So we went out to the market and sold their bonds out to the market. But negotiated meaning we brought our buyers to go out to the market to get it done.
You know,
So that's good. That's an example of one of those ways of doing it to get y'all the best deal. But we all can figure that out when we get to the closer to that point.
yeah,
Any more questions? Great discussion. I love it.
So which entities in the county, Zandt County, are y'all financial advisors for?
Grand Saline, City of,
Okay,
Grand Saline ISD, and City of Wills Point.
the Willis Point. Okay, you mentioned Edgewood and Edgewood ISD.
Those were the ones that we've done financing on the equipment side of government
Okay.
capital corporation.
Okay,
Edgewood ISD, when Eddie Baker was there, or Dr. Baker, excuse me. And Maybank ISD, and I have a list in my pocket, but I would have to pull it up. But we've worked on the equipment side, because there's two companies.
Right.
Government Capital
Right.
Corporation, Government Capital
Mhm.
Securities. On Government Capital Corporation, we work with a lot of your. I can email that to you later.
that's okay. Answer my question.
yeah, I think we got good references, and we'll listen to you. I actually recently replaced Ben Rosenberg at school district, a couple counties over. And I just called him for Christmas, for wishing Merry Christmas, good holiday, all that, we're back next week, and I called him and said, do you mind if I use you as a reference? He's like, well, we had to hit against Ben Rosenberg. He just kind of said, tell them there's an East Texas superintendent that would love to talk to anybody.
Yeah, what other,
So,
what other entities are your financial advisors for on surrounding counties?
I'm trying to come here.
Yes.
Let's see, Rivera would be one of them.
I got
we can get you a complete list, you know, it's gonna be hard for me to get all of them, like right off the top of my head. I've got quite a few here. We work with utility districts too. We've got one in Wasatch, one. I would just say, we just give you a list.
Sure, that'd be fine.
That'd be easier than trying to do it all.
And I had stuff on our GCC side. I just said, do you have a list of all the counties we've ever done before? And it's about 80. So we've done some kind of financing or help for about 1 to 3 years, for the 4 counties in Texas. So 80 that trusted us, you know, 1 out of 3 for some form of financing.
So, and then the last page, just to finish it up, because I know y'all time is valuable. Y'all been sitting here for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Those are just our contacts. One of the ones I wanted, the bottom two, I wanted to point out, Wendy Dolan, and then Gail Robertson. Wendy Dolan is, she's amazing. She's our debt transparency reporting, so anytime that you issue debt. She helps you with the reporting of that, and then the 15C212 is basically a fancy way of continuing disclosure. There's an insane amount of elbow grease that goes into reporting of continuing disclosure about
So it's
bonds.
state laws and federal laws. So once, if you issue these bonds, you're gonna be officially on the public markets again, you have to, really what we do is get the auditor to splash the audit when it's done, post it. Wendy does all the sources, still fine. She does it for more, Planet Energy stuff. She does it for everyone really, that we have, and it's keep you in compliance with House bill laws as well as federal law. But the federal compliance is basically, if there's somebody, a retiree in Florida who's 50,000 invested in your county, you have the right to see your latest audit and all that, and that's us reporting through a system and a system in which we have all that.
And then Gail Robertson, the one below that, she is amazing with also arbitrage. Basically, it's a fancy way of saying, if you issue a lot of money and you invest that, because typically what happens is you issue, let's say $15-20 million, okay? And you have that money sitting inside. A lot of counties will take that and invest it in order to make a little bit of money. She helps you with making sure that there is not you earn too much money, because basically what it is 5 years from now, the feds look and say, hey, do they make too much money? And they can then penalize you for it. And she's on our team that helps you with that as well.
It's arbitrage rebate calculation is for big issuers. And it also, we're tying back to issuing over different periods. If you issue it all at once, you're gonna have a time constriction on how fast you can spend it, it's an exemption. And if you go too long, they don't want people issuing, federal government doesn't want you issuing a bunch of debt sitting on it because you're earning 5% interest and borrowed at 3 or something like that. That extra 2% they're gonna come after for it. If you stick to the exemptions, you actually get to save that money, but there's a 24-month exemption. It just means you want to look at your project and tie your sales, your bond sales to your project. This is gonna take you 3 years, you might more consider that as another factor in splitting into 2 sales, or maybe 3, and then graduate into it, that route.
So I guess in closing, we're here, we're y'all's financial advisor currently. We would love to keep staying here, and we're here to serve you in any way, whether it be however you want us to do it. We're at your disposal. We're here for you. That's basically the short version of it. Anything we can do to help you out. And our phone number's on there, my cell phone number's on there as well. If y'all need anything, let us know. And if y'all are, you have someone that's just gonna come in, like I know Van Zandt County does not have any nosy rosies or Karens or meddling bonus, right? No one here, if one of those comes in your office and you don't want to talk to them, call my cell phone, we'll talk until they leave. We offer that as well.
What's your number? What's your number?
Yeah. We can have to talk about Jerry Jones messed it up again. But anyways, any questions for us?
Have you given a contract to Tonda related to your services? And if we move forward on a particular bond amount, your fee is on a sliding scale?
It is a sliding scale, and it will be defined on the second page. It breaks out exactly. Ted did say he wants to update it because we've been with you a long time and we refreshed it here and there, and I think that Judge Kirkpatrick refreshed it about 21, I think. But he got us a new one, and I was going to get it to y'all once when we got back in break, which is today. So I will send it. But usually on any size, we took them at 15,000. Correct. It's a sliding scale. It goes way down the larger the issue as a percentage of the bond.
The answer is yes.
So if we issue in 3 tranches, though, your fee will be higher because we're doing a bond sale, and a bond sale. So if we're doing a smaller amount, then it'll be a higher. But the overall savings could be in interest, even though y'all
correct
take a little bit more.
If the interest rates go down, or it can be just the opposite.
Yeah.
Either or.
Yeah, look, it's a gamble. It's the same thing with me and my wife getting a mortgage. We should have done it during COVID. Or we should, there's timing is always important with interest rates.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes. So
Thank you
thank you all for your time.
Really appreciate it.
Y'all want us to stay or what y'all want us to do?
You can.
Go ahead and go out,
Okay.
discuss it.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Thank you very much.
We should have had an executive session on here to discuss it.
Yeah, I don't believe that we
I
should.
don't think we need to make a decision right now.
Yeah,
I think that in other circumstances, we might not need to make a decision right now, but considering that we have to actually do something by February,
Yeah.
I think we're in a position where we're going to have to move rather quickly rather than slow.
Right, I agree. But I do think we need,
I think they're both cooperative enough that you can ask them to remain outside while they'll talk about it, and they will.
well, I think we're asking for additional information, like a copy of what the contract would look like that we would have to sign. And the fee schedule and things of that nature. That would be a determination on the decision.
So have both of them given you a contract?
Neither.
Okay.
The guys that were just here, the second center, I reviewed their other contracts every time we do a equipment purchase or
Right.
lease through them, I reviewed all of those. Yeah.
I think it'll be important as to what, how much assistance they're going to provide related to preparation, considering we have a short time frame, how much they'll help us with the information to provide to the public related to the bond. And we certainly may not see, Brandon, we may not see a 11 to 13 cent increase in the tax rate if we do it over a period of 2 or 3 years. It could be a graduated stepped situation, and I certainly don't want to have a big fund of money that we have to be careful on.
I agree.
So the other thing,
The other thing to consider is the current contract with government capital, we're gonna have to give them 30 days notice to be let out of that contract.
Does, if we, that's a little bothersome, is there an exclusivity paragraph in there that we can't have two bond? We would just need to give them a 30-day notice. So it doesn't preclude us from waiting 30 days before we, contract with someone else. Understood.
When did the contract go into effect? It's year by year.
I think they said 2004 or something like that. Yeah.
But it's renewed annually. When is it renewed? January 1st?
I think it auto renews.
Maybe one of them would know.
Well, we can request, that's some of the things we need to get to make.
If we have to give them 30 days notice, if we don't opt with them, where does that put us on the window of having to get?
It's like Cliff was saying, is it in the contract? If we don't go with government capital, we want to go with the other one, we can still talk to the other company.
Yeah.
We can talk to two at one time even, and just wait till that 30-day ends up. So we still have obligations, but then we can talk to somebody else. I don't know.
It's problematic to me that we don't have a contract, that we can review that. So I think that's part one. Yeah, that, perhaps we get them back in here and have them get on the phone with somebody and send a copy of that contract over to us into our email so that we can review it as soon as possible.
Because we were in contract with these since 2004.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying. Now, whether that's true or whether that's not true.
Well, if it renews every year, I mean, well, I would hope we may. Right?
We don't even know when it renews.
Yeah.
They can renew tomorrow.
Well,
And yesterday.
You can probably look, and I was actually gonna recommend also working Virgil's contact, see if he possibly.
Well, I'm not recommending that we do something today. I'm just saying, this needs to be something that we.
They need to look at it.
Quicker rather than slower.
You know when their contract renewed?
I seem like I remember, he said something about, Kirkpatrick in 21, seemed like they did.
Refreshed it.
Sure enough, and refreshed it in 21, or somewhere back.
That's what he said. He said 21.
You don't know when it renews annual?
My recommendation is no matter what we do, that it might today, that what we probably want to do is go ahead and send a 30-day notice. That
Right now.
we're terminate that now. Because, unless there's some substantive reason why we would need to keep that in place. It seems like all of our terms, et cetera, are going to be set based on the new contract that we sign related to this current bond issuance or this.
Well, the contract may also include the equipment purchases that we're doing, which
Right.
that is an ongoing thing every year.
Yeah.
He's emailing me a copy of the current contract right now. Oh, you got it?
I just don't want to feel locked in on something.
Well, what I don't know is if we need to maintain this for our.
And we may, yeah, we may.
I don't know if the other company does equip.
That's true. Or are they bifurcated or not? I think there are several considerations.
What's our timeline? We got a.
February 3rd, we have to call the bond election on February 3rd, between February 3rd and February 14th.
So you have 11-day window to call it.
Yes, February 3rd through February 14th period in which Commissioners Court must call the bond election. So we have to have all this information, everything done by between that time period. Or we have to have a cost basically. Now we start having your town hall and public meetings over the bond election. But we have to call the election and the amount from February 3rd and February 14th.
So, no.
Meet next week.
So do we want to go ahead and set up another meeting for next week?
I think we have to. Today's what, Thursday?
Today is Thursday.
We can do it Monday? Right, Keegan?
Yes, sir.
Say exclusive.
You're gonna want me here, Monday's not a good day.
Monday's not a good day.
Tuesday? Would Tuesday work?
No, wasting the training time, so I could do, it doesn't matter to me. I've got 2 weeks to train on. And every day we're here in court, I'm not train.
I know. Every time it deals with money, you need to be in here, but again, basically, we're just gonna try to pick a company. Correct?
Seems like our being.
That's correct. Decide who to be the financial, and I guess.
So you wouldn't necessarily
Have to be here.
I mean. I like you being here, but.
Seems like being in here is a big part of your job also. So maybe, having her in here a couple of times might be beneficial to her to see what she has to.
We got the meeting with the architect Tuesday.
That's Tuesday.
Okay, so what day are we talking?
We're talking about Monday, Sandy. What about what Cliff just said, Sandy? I mean, I know you got it trained, but if she was in here to listen to what's going on, that might, because she's going to be involved in this, it might be beneficial to her.
But I'm also mindful that we need to try to keep special sessions down to a minimum because it disrupts everybody else's life, including our clerk's life. And
Well,
I feel very disrupted today.
That makes sense.
But I think in this situation, we're on a time crunch.
We don't want to wait till the 13th,
No,
but we won't have numbers until the 7th. So it would make more sense to wait till the 13th. Or theoretically, we'll have numbers by on the 7th.
Yeah, I don't have my mind wrapped around it yet.
It might be beneficial that we ask the financial advisors out there how much time they need. If we wait till the 13th, can they still do everything they need to do in order for us to be prepared? Or maybe they don't have anything to do.
I don't expect us to have numbers by the 7th.
Okay.
The timeline he was originally given is numbers by the end of January.
January 29th, I think was the day so you have
Okay.
everything.
This is October 13th, so it renews on October 13th. But I mean, that's not an issue. And I don't see anything related to exclusivity.
Well,
So I don't think we have to cancel that contract in order to contract with either one of them.
Okay.
For this project.
we just gotta get one hired. That's what we
Well,
gotta
I'd
do.
be more comfortable if we just included it in the 13th regular meeting. Rather than do another special meeting.
Sandy, would that be all right for you? Will you care what we do on the 13th?
Are we gonna be here?
Okay.
When are we going?
I think- Just to be safe, because I don't know the answer to this at all, I would bring them back in together one at a time, whatever y'all's preference is, and ask them, if we wait until the 13th to hire you, can you still be ready for whatever has to happen in that time frame in February?
That's right. I agree with
I
that.
agree. Let's bring them in one at a time.
Knowing that we won't have numbers until
29th.
29th. Anyway,
And I'm not opposed to bringing them both in. Are y'all opposed to
That's
bringing them
fine.
both in? Bring them both in. Yeah, tell them both to come in and. Yeah, bring them both in. Separated by Mr. Barber there, so.
What?
You just, if they start getting ruckus, you just put your arms out.
I'm just telling you, we don't want either one.
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Wake up, Josh.
Wake up.
All right, we were not gonna be able to make a decision today, and we wanted to know, it's very important that the decision we make is made at a regularly scheduled commissioner court meeting and not do another special session. So the next scheduled one is the 13th of January. Will that put you in a bind if we can't make a decision on who to go with until the 13th?
We won't grow stuff.
We will have numbers. We should plan, I hope, we will have the numbers January 29th
Oh, from the, right,
from the jail.
I have 32, so, yeah, yeah.
I think our biggest concern is that if on the, that late into January, is there work that needs to be done between that date and the February date that we have a hard timeline on?
Not from our perspective.
I mean, really, we want to deal with the attorneys to choose in terms of getting that together by February 3rd for sure, and then the government, what you're going to do with all that stuff.
So you have minimal work that you'll be doing on that side. It'll be a heavier work on the attorneys rather than on yourself.
Which you have on the agenda, then the reimbursement resolution is important. If you've made any expenditures from this date prior, and get that in place.
Because you have 60 days.
From the date of the vote, correctly, yeah.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
That should cover it.
That's all the questions that I have.
Okay, all right. So we will, there are some additional questions that may come up that we'll consolidate and give to both of y'all to help us in making decision, but we will put it on the agenda for the 13th of January. That's a Monday, and that is at 9 a.m.
If you want to call this judge in Tarrant County to get me out of that, so I
Okay.
can be here, that's okay with me, if you want to do that.
I have no pull in
Oh.
Tarrant County, all right? So,
13th is a Monday.
yes, we moved it because y'all will
Oh,
be,
yes, that's right.
y'all will be in College Station the remainder of the week, so.
My heart will be here though.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll
Thank you
be
very
in
much.
touch. Bet.
Why can't we do that? Rich? It's gonna sit there and then I'll go through the book. Okay, great. No, I'm talking about the class first.
So that
That's true.
concludes item number 4, correct? Financial advisor, and
Yep.
item number 5, do we need to go into that or not?
I think it'd be helpful to go into that because I think the attorneys, what they were saying, the attorneys have a lot more to do and condos. I mean, we don't have a presentation on that.
So,
I'd like that.
okay, so we'll move into, there's no action, we just on number 4. Item number 5, discuss and consider resolution engaging bond counsel and enacting a 60-day look back period, reimbursement period. Okay, so, and by doing this resolution and enacting a 60-day look back period, then that would mean from the date of the resolution, 60 days prior to that, any expenses incurred related that could potentially be related to what the bond is going to be for, can be paid through the bond election, is what that means. So
Which would be what? Well,
the 60,000 escrow
okay.
that we did on the property, of
Okay.
course, that's assuming if that's part of the bond.
That's
I
what I'm-
mean,
that's
Do you,
what I'm-
do you know when, you remember what we did? You know,
Yeah, I
you're
understand that.
up to date on that, right?
I didn't know what else we had spent on
Okay,
this.
no, that's
Well,
all.
it's
So
been-
we're
nothing
going, so the
on the-
bond is all going to be one thing.
No. Two separate. We haven't decided how, well, this is Brandon's opinion. How we're gonna try to finance this new courthouse, whether it's
Okay.
CO or a bond. We
But the
have
jail
not
and the
discussed
courthouse
that.
gonna be different.
I believe.
And jail's totally
You can
separate.
correct me if I'm wrong though, but I believe we're just focusing on the jail for the bond. right
For the
now.
bond, that's
And
Brandon's.
we're not
opinion.
making a decision on the other property, and how we would renovate it until after the bond election,
So
correct?
what did you mention?
Right, 'cause we have till
60,000?
July 1st.
Well, that's a for instance,
It's not.
but,
Okay.
yeah, but it's not gonna be applicable to this.
We don't have it yet.
You get your budget for the wrong, start that. I don't know.
Tonda, do you have stuff on the attorneys? Is that 5? Is that item 5? There's the attorney.
Stuff on attorneys.
You have, yeah, engaging bond counsel.
Yeah, we've got to get bond counsel engaged. We're pushing them already. At the last meeting where this was on the agenda, y'all authorized me to basically interview, talk to, consult with, and make a recommendation. My recommendation, is that we engage Jackson Walker, which is a large firm, national firm, but they have an office in Dallas, Houston, all the big cities. And they have a gentleman there named Wong Vu, who specializes in this. He has done a lot of jail projects in Texas. And he's been very helpful to me already, even without being contracted, so. That's my recommendation. I have a resolution prepared, that also includes the language for the 60-day look back or reimbursement period. So that at the same time we hire counsel, we can get that on the books, so that the payments we've already made to the architect, for example, can be reimbursed in the future on the bond election if we so choose.
And I'm sorry, go right ahead.
So this firm will be for the new courthouse project and the jail project.
Yes.
We'll do them both. Okay.
Whatever, yes, for whatever financing, he will be counsel for whatever financing we engage in for both projects.
And what does this cost us to have them as our?
Well, again, it costs us nothing unless, the bond passes. Obviously, if y'all issue COs at some point, there would be a cost for that. And again, it is a, sliding scale percentage of the amount.
Is it okay that we wait until the 13th to make this decision?
No, sir.
No, we're on a time crunch on this.
He's. All of them should have been hired 60 days ago. They have a lot of work to do.
Okay. All right, so that's your recommendation, government capital got their information from Jackson Walker. Bond
Yeah,
counsel at Jackson Walker.
They work together a lot.
Hmm.
But he works with
Everybody.
all of them
Right.
because there's only a certain number of bond counsel, there's only a certain number of financial advisors, so they all wind up working together.
Well, I
So-
say we, I don't know if it's, can we hire a bond counsel today since it's not even, I mean.
Yes, it is. It
Yes,
should
it
be
is.
on.
Consider a resolution engaging bond
Engaging.
counsel and enacting a 60-day look back reimbursement. So is there a motion to accept Jackson Walker or to not accept, to engage Jackson Walker as bond counselor and enact a 60-day look back period?
My motion.
All right. Motion-
Second.
All right, motion, is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Any further discussion on either bond? Okay, with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion we adjourn.
This first motion. First motion.
Oh, I'll second that.
Okay, yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
Well.
He was always
Commission.
on point. It was you. We always spot for the first one.
I don't get it.
No, she had, and honestly.
So Tonda, this is the resolution that I need to sign? Okay.
Coming from a lawyer.
Kurt, I'm David Clark. Nice to meet you. And since you spoke, nice to meet you. Congratulations.
Okay. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Most important person in the room. According to the First Amendment, you're on.
I think we're all board to have. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I don't know. So we had to decide.
Now, if we just get people engaged, you can get your.
There you go.
We're gonna get it. We're gonna move it.
See you.
See you, David.
Happy New Year.
You too.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
At your convenience, if you can send me a copy of the resolution.
Yes, I will.
It's fine. Don't rush.
Oh, what a wonderful.
See you. Happy New